They looked me dead in the eyes and said, "We didn't invite you." Not by accident, not with regret. Just flat, casual, like I was some distant acquaintance who had shown up at the wrong wedding. And for a second, standing there in the doorway of the private event hall decorated for their 30th anniversary, I actually believed I must have made a mistake. Until I saw my mother wearing the necklace I bought her 5 years ago. Until I saw my father laughing with my sister. Until I realized every single member of our family was inside. Except me. And that's when I decided that if they didn't want me there as their daughter, they were about to meet me as something else. Hey everyone, I'm Natalie Powell. If you've ever felt shut out, underestimated, or quietly erased by the people who were supposed to love you most, this story is going to hit hard. So before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed and tap like. It helps more than you know. Now let me tell you how my own parents uninvited me from their anniversary, and how that night changed everything. I wasn't the difficult child. That's what still gets me. I was the responsible one, the quiet one, the one teachers liked, the one who didn't slam doors or sneak out or demand attention. If anything, I made life easier for my parents. Or at least I thought I did. My younger sister Leela was different, loud, emotional, charismatic. She had this way of filling a room so completely that no one noticed who was standing in the corner. She cried bigger, laughed louder, needed more. And my parents loved that. They loved her spark, her passion, her strong personality. When I got straight A's, my dad would nod and say, "Good, keep it up." When Leela got a B after failing 2 quizzes, my mom would bake her favorite cake to cheer her up. I learned early that excellence from me was expected, mediocrity from her was a crisis. I don't think my parents meant to create that imbalance, but they did. By the time I was 17, I had internalized something dangerous. Love is quiet, approval is earned, don't be inconvenient. I paid for most of my own college through scholarships. I worked part-time. I never asked for help. Meanwhile, Leela changed majors 3 times and still had my parents covering her rent at 25. But I told myself that was fine. Families aren't scorecards. Or so I believed. The first crack appeared 3 years ago at Christmas. We were sitting around the dining table. My mom had just finished telling a long story about how Leela was finally finding herself after quitting another job. Then my dad raised his glass. "To our girls," he said. I smiled. To Leela for chasing her dreams no matter what. Everyone clapped. I waited. And to Emma, he added, glancing at me briefly, for being steady. Being steady. That was my toast. I laughed along with everyone else, but something tightened in my chest. I wasn't sure what I wanted him to say. I just knew I wanted it to sound like I mattered. Fast forward to last year. I had just gotten promoted to senior project manager at a tech firm. I worked 60-hour weeks for that title. I cried in bathroom stalls. I missed birthdays. I sacrificed relationships. When I told my parents, my mom said, "That's nice, sweetheart, just don't burn yourself out." That was it. 2 months later, Leela announced she was starting an Etsy candle business. My dad built her a website. My mom posted about it daily. They hosted a launch party. That's when I started noticing a pattern I could no longer ignore. I was background music. She was the headline act. Still, I never imagined they would do what they did the night of their anniversary. I found out about the party from my cousin. She posted a photo of a gold-foiled invitation on Instagram. The caption read, "Can't wait to celebrate Aunt Maria and Uncle David's 30 years. Gold-foiled. Formal. Elegant." I zoomed in. Private event hall downtown. Black tie, RSVP required. My stomach dropped. I hadn't received anything. At first I thought maybe it got lost in the mail, so I called my mom casually. "Hey, I saw something about an anniversary party." There was a pause too long. "Oh," she said lightly, "yes, it's just a small thing." "Small?" I asked. "It looks pretty formal." "Well, we didn't think you'd want to come. You're always so busy." That sentence. That sentence echoed in my head for days. We didn't think you'd want to come. Not we forgot, not there was a mistake. They decided for me. And they didn't even tell me. I swallowed the hurt. Of course I'd want to come, you're my parents. Another pause. We've already finalized numbers with the venue, my dad chimed in from the background. Finalized numbers. Like I was an afterthought, an extra chair. My chest felt hollow. But instead of confronting them, I did what I've always done. I said, it's okay, I understand. And then I hung up and sat in my apartment in complete silence. I didn't cry immediately. It was slower than that. It was the kind of pain that creeps up behind you, the realization that you've been slowly edited out of your own family. I went to work the next day like nothing happened. But that night I couldn't sleep. I kept picturing the party, the lights, the speeches, Leela standing beside them in photos that would be framed and displayed for years. And me. Nowhere. Around 2 a.m. I made a decision. If they didn't think I wanted to come, I'd show up anyway. Not to beg. Not to argue. But to remind them exactly who I was. And that's when the idea of the gift box started forming. Because if I was going to walk into that room uninvited, I wasn't going empty-handed. And what I put inside that box would change everything. But I didn't know yet how far this would go. I didn't know that by the end of that night, my parents would be the ones wishing they could disappear. And I definitely didn't know that the truth I was about to reveal had been sitting in my possession for years. I just knew one thing. If they wanted to pretend I wasn't part of the family, I was about to make it impossible to ignore me. And the planning, that's where things got interesting. I didn't wake up the next morning feeling powerful. I woke up feeling pathetic. Petty. Like I was 12 years old again, standing in the kitchen while my parents argued about whether Leela was just misunderstood or going through a phase. And me, I was invisible background noise. For a few hours, I almost talked myself out of going. Maybe they're right, I muttered while brushing my teeth. Maybe I am too busy, maybe this isn't personal. But deep down I knew it was. Because this wasn't the first time I'd been quietly sidelined. It was just the first time they'd been bold enough to say it out loud. That night I pulled out a storage box from the back of my closet. It was filled with old paperwork, insurance documents, copies of contracts, random folders I'd kept just in case. I'm the kind of person who keeps everything. And that habit, it was about to become very important. 3 years earlier, my parents had asked me for help. They were struggling financially. My dad's small logistics company had taken a hit during a downturn, and my mom had quietly confessed over coffee that they were behind on mortgage payments. They didn't ask Leela. They asked me. Because I was the stable one. The steady one. I didn't hesitate. I dipped into my savings, $35,000, nearly everything I had built after years of working overtime. But here's the part no one else knew. I didn't just hand them cash. I had them sign paperwork. Nothing aggressive, nothing dramatic, just a formal loan agreement drafted by a lawyer friend, structured repayment plan, modest interest, clear terms. My dad had laughed at the time. Emma, you don't need to treat us like clients. I smiled and said, it's just paperwork, protects everyone. He signed. My mom signed. Leela rolled her eyes and said I was so corporate. But they signed. And for the first year they paid consistently. Then payments slowed. Then they stopped. When I gently brought it up once, my mom sighed. We're family, it's not like we'd ever screw you over. That word, family. It's amazing how often people use it right before doing something selfish. I never pushed hard after that. I didn't want to create tension. I told myself they'd pay when they could. But I kept the documents. And I kept every bank statement showing the missed payments. Now, sitting on my bedroom floor with those papers spread around me, something shifted inside me. If I wasn't family enough to attend their anniversary, maybe we were just business. I felt sick thinking that way. But I also felt clarity. Still, I didn't want to go nuclear, not yet. I called my mom one more time. "Are you sure there's no space for me?" I asked gently. She sounded distracted. "Emma, please don't make this a thing, we already explained." Don't make this a thing. As if I was the problem. As if wanting to celebrate 30 years of my parents' marriage was dramatic. I hung up without saying goodbye. And that was the moment the sadness started turning into something sharper. Not rage. Resolve. If they had just forgotten, I could forgive that. If they had apologized, I could have let it go. But the dismissal, the casual exclusion, that cut deeper. Over the next week, I watched the party hype build online. Leela posted behind-the-scenes videos. Mom's dress fitting. Dad practicing his speech. A preview of the custom cake. Every post felt like a reminder, you are not part of this. Friends and extended family commented things like, "Can't wait to see both daughters there." Both daughters. The irony almost made me laugh. At work I was distracted. My assistant asked twice if I was okay. I snapped at a colleague during a meeting. That's not like me. At night I'd lie awake replaying childhood memories I had buried. The dance recital where my parents arrived late because Leela wasn't feeling well. The graduation dinner where they spent half the night consoling her over a breakup. The countless times I told myself, "It's fine, I'm strong." Being strong is lonely. And eventually, strength turns into silence. But here's what really tipped the scale. 2 days before the anniversary, I received a group message from my extended family. It was a reminder about the event details. Everyone was included. Except me. I wasn't in the group. My cousin accidentally forwarded it to me privately with, "Wait, aren't you already in this chat?" My hands were shaking when I read it. They didn't just forget to invite me. They deliberately left me out of every detail. I stared at my phone for a long time. Then I opened my emails. I drafted a formal notice. Subject line, "Loan repayment status, immediate action required." My fingers hovered over the send button. Was I really going to do this? Take my own parents to court? My chest felt tight, my heart was pounding in my ears. But then I imagined them standing at that party, raising a toast to family, while I sat alone in my apartment. And something inside me hardened. I didn't send it. Not yet. Instead, I printed everything. Original loan agreement. Payment schedule. Bank records showing default. Total amount owed with accrued interest. It wasn't just $35,000 anymore. It was closer to $48,000. I placed it all neatly into a black gift box. On top, I added a simple card. "Congratulations on 30 years. I hope you value commitment as much as I do." I stared at the box for a long time. Part of me still hoped they would call and apologize. They didn't. The morning of the anniversary, I woke up nauseous. I almost threw up in the sink. What was I doing? This wasn't me. I avoid conflict, I smooth things over, I endure. But endurance has limits. By evening I was dressed in a simple black dress, nothing flashy, nothing dramatic. Just composed. I looked at myself in the mirror. "You are not crazy," I whispered. "You are not overreacting. You deserve to be treated like you matter." Then I picked up the box. The event hall was glowing when I arrived, soft golden lights, string quartets drifting through the air, valet attendants greeting guests. Through the glass doors I could see my family laughing. And for one last second I hesitated, because walking in meant there was no going back. But what happened next? It wasn't what I expected. Because when I stepped inside, they didn't look shocked. They looked annoyed. And that reaction, that's what sealed their fate. The music didn't stop when I walked in. That's what I remember first. A soft string quartet version of some old love song my parents used to play in the car when I was little. The room was warm with golden light, champagne glasses clinking, laughter bouncing off the high ceilings. It should have felt romantic. Instead, it felt staged. My heels clicked against the marble floor, and for a few seconds no one noticed me. I wasn't loud enough, not dramatic enough. Then my cousin spotted me. Her smile froze. "Oh, Emma." Just my name, no hug, no excitement. That one word rippled through the room, faster than any announcement. My mother turned. Her face didn't light up. It tightened. My father's jaw clenched, almost imperceptibly. And Leela, she looked irritated. I stopped a few feet away from them, holding the black gift box in both hands like some kind of offering. "Hi," I said, keeping my voice steady. My mother stepped closer, lowering her voice. "What are you doing here?" Not hello. Not "I'm glad you came." "What are you doing here?" "I came to celebrate you," I replied. Her eyes flicked toward the guests nearby, clearly worried about appearances. "Emma, we talked about this." "Yes," I said calmly. "You told me I wasn't invited." My dad gave a tight smile for the people watching. "Sweetheart, let's not make a scene." There it was again. Me, the potential problem. As if my presence was the disruption, not their exclusion. "I'm not here to make a scene," I said. "I brought a gift." Leela crossed her arms. "This is kind of inappropriate." Inappropriate. That word landed harder than I expected. Inappropriate to attend my parents' anniversary. Inappropriate to show up for family. In that moment, something inside me clicked into place. They weren't embarrassed. They weren't guilty. They genuinely believed I was the unreasonable one. And that realization, it erased the last of my hesitation. My dad exhaled sharply. "Fine, you're here, stay, just keep it civil." Keep it civil. I almost laughed. As if I was the unpredictable one. They turned back to their guests like I was a minor inconvenience that had resolved itself. I stood there alone for a few seconds, absorbing the room. Round tables draped in white linen, floral centerpieces in soft blush and ivory, a slideshow playing on a projector screen, photos of my parents through the decades. Wedding day. Vacations. Christmas mornings. Family portraits. In every recent photo, Leela stood close to them. In many, I was missing. I don't know when that started happening. Maybe I stopped being invited to things long before this. I made my way to the bar and ordered sparkling water. My hands were steady now. Too steady. Across the room, I watched my dad rehearsing his speech under his breath. My mom adjusted her necklace nervously. They cared deeply about how tonight looked. About the story being told. 30 years of love, of partnership, of family unity. The irony almost made my chest ache. About 20 minutes later, it was time for speeches. Guests gathered near the stage, the lights dimmed slightly. I stayed toward the back, gift box still in hand. My dad took the microphone first. 30 years ago, he began, his voice thick with emotion, I married the most incredible woman I've ever known. Applause. He went on about sacrifice, loyalty, standing by each other through financial hardship. Financial hardship. I felt heat rise in my neck. He talked about raising 2 beautiful daughters. 2. The crowd smiled. Our girls are our greatest achievement, he said. I swallowed hard. Because if that was true, why did it feel like I had been quietly edited out of the narrative? Then my mom took the mic. She spoke about resilience, about how family means showing up for one another no matter what. Showing up. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. The hypocrisy was almost surreal. When they finished, Leela joined them on stage. The 3 of them embraced. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Family goals." Everyone laughed warmly. That was my moment. I didn't storm the stage. I didn't raise my voice. I simply walked forward. Each step felt deliberate, measured. The room grew quieter as people noticed. My father's smile faltered. I reached the front and gently placed the black gift box on the table beside them. "I wouldn't miss this," I said clearly, projecting just enough for the room to hear. My mom's eyes flashed warning. "Emma," she whispered through clenched teeth. "I just wanted to give you your gift," I continued. The room was now fully silent. My dad forced a chuckle. "Well, that's very kind." He reached for the box. For a split second, I wondered if I should stop him, if I should take it back and walk away. But then I remembered every sleepless night, every minimized accomplishment, every "don't make this a thing." And I let him open it. He lifted the lid. At first, confusion crossed his face. Then recognition. Then color drained from his skin. Inside the box were neatly stacked copies of the loan agreement, the payment history, and a highlighted total owed. $48,000. On top was the card. He picked it up with trembling fingers and read it silently. My mother leaned closer. I watched the moment she understood. Her breath caught. "What is this?" Leela hissed under her breath. I stepped back slightly, giving them space while making sure my voice carried. "It's just a reminder," I said calmly, "of the commitment we made to each other." The room was dead silent. Someone coughed awkwardly. My dad looked up at me, eyes wide with a mixture of anger and disbelief. "You're seriously doing this," he muttered. I met his gaze steadily. "You said family shows up for each other." I did. My mother's face was flushed now. "This is not the time." "You chose the time," I replied softly. A ripple of whispers spread through the crowd. Guests were looking between us, confused. My aunt leaned toward my cousin. I saw her whisper, "What loan?" "Exactly. What loans?" Because no one knew. They had borrowed from their steady daughter. They had stopped paying her back. And now they were celebrating resilience and unity in front of 100 people. Without me. My dad tried to laugh it off. "This is a private matter." It was, I agreed, until I became a private matter. That landed hard. You could feel the shift in the room. Suddenly, this wasn't a dramatic daughter ruining a party. This was a daughter who had been excluded and apparently financially wronged. My mom grabbed my arm, squeezing too tightly. "We will talk about this at home." I gently removed her hand. I wasn't invited home tonight. A few guests gasped quietly. Leela stepped forward, voice sharp. "You're embarrassing them." "No," I said, looking directly at her. "I'm clarifying something." My heart was pounding now, but my voice remained even. "I gave you both my savings when you needed help," I continued. "I trusted you. I didn't ask for applause, I asked for respect." My dad's composure was cracking. "You're acting like we stole from you." "You stopped paying," I said simply. Silence. It's amazing how loud silence can be. I could see calculations happening in people's faces, reframing, reconsidering. The narrative was shifting. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the quiet one letting it slide. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't crying. I was just telling the truth. My mom's voice softened suddenly, switching tactics. "Sweetheart, we were going to sort that out. You know we love you." Love. There it was again. The word that had always been enough to silence me. But not tonight. "If you loved me," I said quietly, "you would have wanted me here." That was the moment her eyes filled with something that almost looked like guilt. Almost. The crowd was restless now. The perfect anniversary glow had cracked. My dad looked at the guests and forced a strained smile. "Why don't we take a short break?" But the damage was done. Because the box was open. The papers were visible, and the story they had been telling about unity and devotion now had a very public contradiction. I stepped back. I didn't need to say anything else. The truth was sitting in that box, and the room knew it. But here's what I didn't expect. I thought they'd beg me to stay quiet. I thought they'd panic privately. What I didn't expect was what my father said next. Because instead of apologizing, he tried to flip the narrative. And that's when this stopped being about money and started becoming about something much bigger. # Part 4, the execution and fallout. My father didn't panic. He didn't apologize. He straightened his jacket. And then he did something I should have expected but still wasn't prepared for. He stepped back toward the microphone. "Everyone," he said with a forced chuckle, "this is exactly what I mean when I say our family is passionate." A few people gave polite, confused laughs. I stood very still. "This," he continued, lifting the top sheet of the loan agreement between 2 fingers, "is a misunderstanding blown out of proportion." Misunderstanding. $48,000 was now a misunderstanding. My pulse thudded in my ears. He kept going. "Emma has always been very detail-oriented." He smiled tightly in my direction. "When we were going through a rough patch, she insisted on formal paperwork. We humored her." Humored me. Like I was a child playing office. "And yes, payments were delayed," he said lightly, "because that's what families do. They support each other without keeping score." The subtle shift was brilliant, in a manipulative way. Suddenly, I wasn't the responsible daughter asking for accountability. I was the cold, transactional one. The one keeping score. The crowd shifted again. I could feel it. Uncertainty creeping back in. My mother stepped forward, eyes glossy now. We never imagined she'd bring something like this to such a special night. There it was. The emotional angle. The wounded parents. The ungrateful daughter. Leela folded her arms dramatically and shook her head like she couldn't believe my audacity. For a split second, doubt pierced me. Was I wrong to do this here? Was this too far? And then I remembered something. 3 months ago, I had sent my dad a polite email asking about resuming payments. He responded with one line. "We'll handle it when we're ready." When we're ready. Like I was an inconvenience. Like my savings were optional. I stepped forward again. "If it's a misunderstanding," I said calmly, "then we can clear it up right now." My father's smile twitched. "How?" he asked, tone sharpening. "Tell everyone," I said, "when you plan to resume payments." The room went quiet again. Because this was no longer abstract. It was specific. It required an answer. My mother's composure cracked first. "Emma, please." "Please what?" I asked softly. "Pretend I don't exist." That line hung in the air like smoke. A few guests visibly stiffened. My aunt spoke up hesitantly from the side. "Maria, is this true?" My mom didn't answer. That silence said everything. My father lowered his voice. "You're being vindictive." The word strung more than I expected. Vindictive. As if accountability was cruelty. I swallowed. "I waited 2 years," I said quietly. 2 years of missed payments, 2 years of not pushing, 2 years of telling myself you follow through. I could feel my heart racing, but my voice didn't shake. "And then you decided I wasn't important enough to attend your anniversary." That landed differently. Because now the pieces connected. This wasn't about money alone. It was about value. About place. About being erased. The crowd saw it. You could see it in their faces. My dad tried once more. "We didn't think you'd want to come." The lie sounded smaller now. Thinner. "I told you I did," I replied. Silence. No orchestra, no clinking glasses. Just truth sitting in the center of the room. Finally, I took a slow breath. I'm not asking for applause, I said. I'm not asking for sympathy, I'm asking for what you agreed to. I reached into my purse and pulled out one final document. A formal demand notice. Not yet filed, but prepared. I didn't send this, I said evenly, because I hoped we'd handle it privately, but tonight made something clear. My father's face darkened. You wouldn't. I would, I said simply. And in that moment I meant it. Not out of spite. Out of self-respect. You could see it dawn on him. I wasn't bluffing. This wasn't emotional chaos. It was measured. Planned. Documented. The room shifted permanently then. Because people respect preparation. They respect someone who doesn't scream, doesn't flail, but stands steady. For the first time in my life, my steadiness wasn't passive. It was power. My mother's voice broke. You're going to sue us. If I have to, I said. The quartet had stopped playing entirely now. The staff hovered awkwardly near the walls. Leela whispered sharply, "This is disgusting." I looked at her. You didn't hesitate to let them borrow from me, I said quietly, but you hesitate at them repaying me. Her mouth opened, then closed. She had nothing. Because she knew. She had known the whole time. She had watched payments stop. She had watched me get excluded. And she had stayed comfortable. My father exhaled long and slow. What do you want? He asked finally. Not angry now. Just calculating. It wasn't an apology. But it was acknowledgement. I want acknowledgement, I said first, out loud. His jaw tightened. You borrowed from me, I continued. You stopped paying, and you excluded me from this event. The crowd waited. This was the moment. The real one. My mother looked at him. He looked at her. 30 years of marriage hanging between them. And then very quietly my father said, "We borrowed the money." My chest tightened. He continued, voice strained, "We fell behind, we should have communicated better. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't warm. But it was public. And that mattered." "And the invitation?" I asked. A long pause. "We made a mistake," my mother said, barely audible. There it was. A mistake. Small word. Huge impact. The tension in my body began to drain. Not completely. But enough. "I'll give you 30 days, I said evenly, "to provide a written repayment plan. If I don't have one, I move forward legally." Gasps again. But softer now. Less scandalized. Maury understanding. I closed the gift box gently and handed it back to my father. "Happy anniversary," I said. And then I turned and walked out. No dramatic slam. No tears. Just the steady sound of my heels against marble. Outside, the night air hit my face like a reset button. I didn't cry. Not yet. I got into my car and sat there in silence, hands resting on the steering wheel. My body felt light. And heavy. All at once. For the first time in years, I hadn't swallowed it. I hadn't minimized myself. I hadn't smoothed things over to keep peace. I chose myself. The fallout came quickly. Within 24 hours, relatives were texting me. Some were shocked. Some were supportive. One aunt wrote, "I'm proud of you." That message made me cry harder than the confrontation. My parents didn't call for 3 days. When they finally did, it wasn't explosive. It was subdued. My dad's voice sounded older. "We'll send a plan," he said. And they did. 30 days later, I had a formal repayment agreement. Automatic transfers resumed. On time. Every month. But something else changed too. They invite me now. Every time. No assumptions, no exclusions. Our relationship isn't perfect. It may never be. But there's a different tone. Careful. Aware. Because they learned something that night. I am not background music. I am not the steady, silent safety net. I am not the daughter you can quietly sideline while benefiting from her strength. I'm still steady. But now I'm steady with boundaries. And here's the part that matters most. I didn't win because I embarrassed them. I won because I stopped accepting less than I deserved. Sometimes revenge isn't destruction. Sometimes it's clarity. It's standing in the center of a room that tried to erase you and calmly refusing to disappear. They said I wasn't invited. But when they opened that gift box, they finally saw me. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been underestimated or quietly pushed aside, don't stay silent forever. Strength doesn't mean absorbing disrespect. Sometimes it means drawing a line. I'm Natalie Powell. If you believe in accountability, self-respect, and a little poetic justice, make sure you're subscribed and leave a comment sharing your thoughts. I read more than you think. And remember, never let anyone treat you like an optional guest in your own life.